Morning to those that are with us on the internet. Today is a simulcast. I'm actually teaching our in-person class at the same time, and I was sharing with them earlier that this is where we're headed, so that we can multiply our teachers, so to expand back out. So sooner than later, this will be a regular occurrence, but we'll be adding a camera, so your camera angle's a little better. We're going to add an ambient mic so that you can hear the folks talking here, and so it'll be good. So, well, I see everyone survived Thanksgiving. How many Thanksgivings did you have, meal-wise? Just one? 3? Yeah, my bride was suffering through her 4th yesterday, and she says her dressing quota is over the roof. So we did a Thanksgiving brunch along with a traditional Thanksgiving dinner, so that was something different. I don't know if it'll be repeated, but we'll see. And look, Jared's walking in. He's like, "What are we doing already?" For brunch? Oh, we had quiche and we had casseroles and muffins and scones. Oh yeah, and ham. We did have ham, so yeah. One of my sisters forgot it was brunch and brought stuffed jalapenos. But she made them for a traditional lunch, didn't she? So. Oh. Well, she'll eat hot things anytime. So, yeah. So it was good. And so, did anyone do Black Friday shopping? Has Black Friday been lost now to the internet and Well, with was it? Well, my Thanksgiving morning responsibility is to find the Dallas Morning News, because it had all the Black Friday ads in it, and it was very light this year. Academy had, I bet you, it was 20 pages. I mean, Academy had a big ad. Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know if Black Friday, that classic Black Friday, might be lost, to internet, COVID. Yeah, good. Was it Omicron? See, I think we could just get around to calling them some. Yeah. So, the unfortunate truth is I think variants are just going to be a part of our lives, like the flu, unfortunately, and we'll have to figure it out. So, but yeah, we are now officially into the Christmas season, and next Saturday we will be preparing the campus for the holiday. And Josh, what time did we set for that? 10? And you're welcome to come. And Josh, I was just going to let you know that Holly asked me if we needed anything, because I guess she's downsized. And I said, well, you can bring. So I don't know. I think there may be. Yeah. There's some things, and maybe we need to buy some things. I don't know. So, but that'll be next Sunday. And today we are beginning Advent at ALF. So does anyone remember, have we ever done Advent? Okay, my wife and I are having flashback memories, but it. Okay. But, well, now, yeah, we could have, so. What's funny about Advent is I think about it and have purpose to do it for several years, but I don't think of it until like this Sunday, and then you're behind the 8 ball. So this year we were talking about the Christmas season and how to celebrate it and commemorate it, and we thought Advent would be an interesting experiment. And so we're excited about the next 4 weeks and the way that we're going to do Advent. Now, have you ever gotten in trouble, or has anyone ever, got upset with you because you did something that was traditional, but you didn't do it the way they did it? We did it, but you didn't do it the way we do it. So you didn't really do it right. Have you ever had that, maybe in family traditions and those sort of things? Well, Ronnie, that's a spiritual gift. Ronnie says he's made a lot of people mad. So the thing about traditions is they're a wonderful part of our lives. Wouldn't you agree? There's all kinds of traditions, and then when you get into the holidays, traditions really go up. So tell me, what are some of your favorite Christmas time traditions that you decorating cookies on Christmas Eve? Okay. For Santa and to eat. Yes, well, you wouldn't want to leave Santa something you wouldn't eat yourself. I mean, that would be poor form. Okay, decorating cookies on Christmas Eve. Anybody else? Okay. Have you driving around looking at Christmas? Have you ever gone to Dallas to the big neighborhoods? We used to do that. We haven't done that in quite a while. Go look at those people that spent a lot of money and go. What's that? Yeah. Ours was Ponchos. The Ponchos over in Plano, if it's even still there. We go to Ponchos and then go see Christmas lights and Deerfield over there off Custer, I think it is, was where we would. And there was this one house. It was humongous, and you could see through the top of it. It had big and it was the most impressive. That one was the one I always wanted to see. So, what was your Christmas? Okay. Okay. Go walk Park Street. Now, I tell you that back in the day, if it was decorated then, riding that trolley through there would have really been something special. That would have been fun. For those that may not know, there used to be a trolley that ran the length of Park Street. So, yeah. He had a house at the courthouse? Oh, wow. Okay. Santa Claus. Okay, I don't have any recollection of that, so it was a little before my time. Wow. Huh. Okay. Okay. If you grew up here and you were in choir, you got to go to choir concerts, 3 or 4 of them during the holidays, and that was always cool because you got out of school. So, um, for us, we have several traditions. One is the day we put the tree up. Now, this one is a little not as rigid as it once was, but we watch White Christmas, my wife's favorite, and so that's a big. And a must-watch during the Christmas season is Muppets Christmas Carol. That's my Christmas movie, Muppets Christmas Carol. I quote it at almost every funeral I serve at. I do. I tell you'll shoot your eye out. In that movie, Kermit is playing Bob Cratchit, and they're doing the foreshadowing of Tiny Tim's passing. And he says, life is made up of meetings and partings, and that's just the way of it. And I remember one year watching that movie, and that just like a gong, because that's true. Life is made up of meetings and partings, and that's just the way of it. And it really blessed me and encouraged me because I'm one of those guys. I'm very loyal, and man, I'll stay by you forever. I don't delete people or phone numbers. But I came to realize in ministry that isn't always a two-way street, and life is made up of meetings and partings, and that's just the way of it, So it blessed me. So I do quote it, that, and one of my favorite theologians, Little Orphan Annie. The sun will come out tomorrow. So, but traditions are important, and Advent that we're going to be participating in this year is a tradition that's been passed down inside the church for a long, long time. Traditions have two primary purposes. The first one is teaching. Now, when we think about, I remember when I first started going overseas, and especially further east, you would go into the Orthodox churches, and in front of the worship center of the Orthodox churches, there's this wall, and it has paintings or icons. And when you first walk in, it's a beautiful thing, but being an evangelical, an American evangelical, you look at it, and your first thought is, are these idols? Do they extend worship to this? And the answer is, in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, the answer is no. There's not any sacredness in this wall of icons, but what it does is it harkens all the way back to when the vast majority of people could not read. And so you can walk into that church and you can, quote, read the pictures, and you can see the gospel in the icons. And so it was there for a person to be able to come in and to read the gospel. And so it's very, very beautiful, very moving tradition. And so traditions have a process of teaching. They teach either what was important to us as a family or important to us as parents, but it also teaches us things that are important in our faith. And it also helps us to remember. So let me ask you this question. Excuse me. Do Christians need to be reminded of the reason for the season? Do we as Christians need to be reminded of what this is all about? Okay. Yeah? Yeah? Here you go, Jared. I don't want to hit you in the eye. Oh, man. Oh, I got it there. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Say that again. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. We know the reason, but sometimes we need to be recentered or refocused. That's true because we're human beings, and depending on where we are in life, quite truthfully, Christmas can get way out of pocket in our lives like it can anybody else's. We can get overextended financially, and that can have its difficulties. We can become overextended in our calendars. One of the things, and I know Josh is already bemoaning it, is the thing about the holidays is you like to be with people. But when you're with people, you're not at home or doing something with your family. And when you're with people and not at home, it seems like the calendar goes by twice as fast. And so part of the challenge is trying to get that calendar to slow down a little bit. I've gotten to where I kind of monitor my calendar because, there's a lot of things and a lot of people who have a lot of events, and, they're very kind and thoughtful to invite me. But I found if my bride and I went to everything that we were invited to, Christmas was here, in 2 days, so. But we can become overextended financially, in our calendar, in our energy, and then depending on where we are, the holidays have an emotional elevation, but they also have a little bit of an emotional I was going to say sedative, but it's the counterbalance. The holidays always call us to think about those that aren't with us any longer. We think about those memories, those traditions, and it can be sobering, and if we're not very careful, it might even lead to seasonal depression. That's a real thing. Let me say something about that as far as seasonal depression is while we're going through the holidays, we should really strive to be peacemakers anyway, but let's doubly strive because we don't know what someone is going through, and it could be compounded because of the time of year. And this is one of the greatest times of the year to share your faith. When you're talking about the holidays and maybe what you do or you do not do and why, it's a great time. It's a great time to invite people to church. But teaching and remembering are the two primary purposes of Advent, and it is important for us as Christians to be reminded of the reason for the season, and not only to be reminded of it, but to live our lives in accordance with that. And that's very important. So one of the things about Advent, now what churches do you think about when you hear the word Advent? Are there any particular churches? Okay, my bride says Episcopalian. So, I'm sorry, sweetie. My arm is just not. So Friday, I had the privilege of serving a family for a funeral, and the mother, who was 84, was the one who had passed, and she was Episcopalian by tradition. And when they called me, I said, well, I'm not Episcopalian. And the daughter says, well, a good non-denominational service will be fine. And I said, well, alternative life. I said, I'm saved by grace, Baptist by choice. She goes, oh, okay, we're talking. But I did do this. I went to the Episcopalian prayer book, and the closing prayer at the graveside was from the Episcopalian prayer book, and they were very flattered. I had to really brush up on my King James though, because it was very. But our Episcopalian brothers, who else do we think of when we hear Advent? Methodists. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Methodist. Who else? Church of Christ. No. Presbyterians do it. Here you go, Ronnie, for that anti-Church of Christ statement. What's that, Scott? Yeah, everybody gets a little. Yeah, so when we hear the word Advent, we typically think of the more high church or liturgical churches, which is your Lutherans, our friends across the street, Presbyterians, Methodists, the Catholic Church doesn't really practice Advent, I don't think. Our Anglican brothers all practice Advent. So what's funny is this. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but when the evangelicals in the faith family and the more high church liturgical in the faith family, because we're all the same family. If Jesus is our Savior, I mean, we're family. Now, the way we express family might be a little different, but what's funny is if they do it over here, we're afraid to do it over here. It's the reason, like when the Pentecostal movement was at its zenith, the Baptists did everything they could to be as far away from the Pentecostals as they could. Now, what's amazing is Baptists in their history were some of the most excitable church people in the world. I mean, they would throw handkerchiefs in the air. I mean, they'd get after it. But when the Pentecostal movement came to the forefront, what they said was, well, we don't want to be mistaken for them, so we're going to move over here. And so now, especially a very traditional Baptist church, You're not getting nothing that looks even close to Pentecostal. You get that hand above your waist, you better be reaching for the offering plate. So it's an interesting thing. Now, we don't do that here. I remember falling under tremendous conviction about that years ago when I was at Dixon, when we were at Dixon. So, it was a worship, we were doing our time of worship, and I felt I just wanted to lift my hands, but I didn't. And the reason that I didn't was because of the people standing behind me and what they may think. And I'm telling you this, I'm not saying the Lord spoke to me audibly, but it was very clear in my heart. Jimmy, whose opinion is more important to you? If you raise your hands on Sunday, then you need to live it on Monday. But if you feel, oh my geez, if you feel compelled, now you listen here, Cody Giles. You didn't know that guy back when you were 7 years old. Listen, you can take that lie right across the street to the Lutherans. I see, Cody. I see. Well, you can have it back. All right, where was I? Oh, we were talking about, we hear names and things that other parts of the family celebrate, and sometimes we're afraid to do that. So, that morning worship. And it was very clear to me, the Lord said, whose opinion matters the most? And so I get asked this from time to time, if you notice, which I don't know why you would, but if you do, the majority of the time I sing during our time with my eyes closed, if I know the words. And I do that because in my mind, in my heart, I'm trying to imagine an audience of one, because that's who our worship is for. We get to do it collective, and I'm glad. There's nothing like collective worship, but it's our expression to the Lord. It's an audience of one. And that day I remember so clearly the Lord saying, now, I have liberty in Christ. I don't exercise that all the time, but when I do, it's what I really feel like I need and should do. So Advent, a lot of evangelical churches do not participate in an Advent celebration, but we're not typical. We are atypical. What are some other, perhaps, traditions that evangelicals don't participate in on normal? There's one other that's really big that most evangelicals won't do. Lent. Yeah, the Lenten season, Ash Wednesday and all that. Because when you think of Lent, you probably first think of our friends the Catholics, and we don't want to be mistaken for them, so we don't do Lent. Well, years ago, Lent was coming, and I was given the book, The Purpose-Driven Life, and it has 40 chapters, and I thought, and so that year I decided I was going to celebrate Lent. This little guy in his little Baptist church and his circle of one was going to celebrate Lent, and he wouldn't tell his evangelical friends because they'd think he was a heretic or something. But over the years, I have celebrated Lent many, many times, and part of it is I reread that book. And if you come to my office and you find the original copy, I've got more than one copy now, but if you find my copy, the original copy, the one given to me, and you open it up, it's like a rainbow. Because each time I read it, I try to use something different to highlight things that stand out to me. And so over the years, it's got all different color highlighters in it and that sort of thing. And so when we look at the thing called Advent, we are participating in Advent. And Advent stands for The word Advent means arrival or an appearing or a coming into place. And so Advent is the celebration of the arrival of Jesus. Now, when you put it down to that, you go, who doesn't want to celebrate that? And they're going, we all want to celebrate that. Well, let's do a thing called Advent. Oh, well, so the Advent is the celebration of the first coming of Christ. Now, let me ask you this. When is the first coming of Christ to the Jews? Today's the first day of Hanukkah also. I can't teach you all about Hanukkah today, but we might later on. But today's the first day of Hanukkah. So when is the Advent for the Jewish people, the arrival of the Messiah? When is the Advent for them? They're still waiting on it. I love you guys. So, our friends, the Jews, especially the Orthodox, they can celebrate Advent because they're still looking for the arrival, but we believe that Christ is that arrival. So we have enjoyed the first Advent when Christ was born, and then we speak of a second Advent. So what would you think the second Advent would be? If Christmas is the first one, what would be the second Advent? The second coming, okay? Now, is that the rapture? Are you talking about the rapture of the church? Okay. See, Ronnie is very slick because the rapture is called the mini Advent, depending on who you ask. Mini as in M-I-N-I, small Advent. Because that's exactly right. The rapture of the church and the second coming of Christ are two events. Because the second coming of Christ means that he comes to this earth. So you have Advent, which was the birth of Christ. You have the second Advent when Christ comes to this earth for a second time. And then if you want to look really smart, and depending on the tone and posture, look a little bit religious uppity, you go, but that doesn't include the mini Advent of the rapture of the church. So, but it is a celebration. It is a time for us to be reflective and contemplative. It's a time for us to give thanks that the Lord sent his Son. One of the things I believe us as Christians especially need to be mindful of is that God did not owe us Jesus. If we're not careful, sometimes we could take things for granted, can't we? We could take people, it's our nature sometimes. And Christmas is a celebration of the fact that God loved us enough that he sent his Son, that we could have peace with him. And the fact that God didn't owe it to us, yet he did it anyway while we were yet enemies, the Bible says, that's a humbling thing. No, we got to go. Okay, the Advent lasts for 4 Sundays, today being our first, and then it ends on Christmas Eve. Let me skip through here. A lot. Advent is seen as a time to prepare one's heart for Christmas and for the eventual return of Christ. Every time we celebrate Christmas, it points us to the second coming of Christ. There will be a second coming. That's going to be great. Churches observe Advent usually decorate their sanctuaries in liturgical colors. Ours will be decorated next week, not necessarily liturgical colors. So let me get to the candles. On the first Sunday of Advent, churches and homes decorate with green to symbolize the eternal life that Jesus brings, and that will be with us next week. And then we'll also have an Advent wreath that will be a part of ours that shows the eternalness of Christ. The first candle, which we will light today, is the hope candle. And so ours will be 3 purple, 1 pink, and then Christmas Eve there will be a white candle. Those colors are not set in stone, but those are very traditional colors. You might see 3 pink and 1 purple. It's all a matter of preference. There you go. So the first one represents a hope. And Josh today is going to teach on the hope of the coming of Christ. Josh is going to teach us what does the Old Testament say about the coming of Christ. And so we're looking at the hope. And then the 3 remaining candles have differing meanings. And here at the Little ALF, we never do things exactly normal, as they say. The first one is the expectation, and that's what Josh is going to teach on today. The second will be the arrival. Jeff is going to teach on the coming of Christ. And Jeff says, well, where do I teach from? I said, either from the Annunciation to Pentecost. You've got all of that turf you can cover if you want to. The third candle will be the return candle. I'm going to teach on the return of Christ, the second coming, the second advent. Our fourth candle will be our remembrance candle, and that will be the Sunday we observe the Lord's communion, as we remember him awaiting the second advent. And then our last candle, the Christ candle, will be lit during the candlelight service, and it symbolizes that Christ has come and he is the light of the world. And so it's a beautiful thing. It's going to be a wonderful addition to this season, and I hope that you'll be here for all of the service, or as many as you can. So let me ask you, anybody here do Advent calendars? No? You do? Okay. I always want to, but I never remembered. So Advent calendars, are they okay? Yeah, they're okay. The goal of the Advent calendar from its inception even till today, now the world has secularized, some, but for us, the Advent calendar should be a process by which we build anticipation in the mind and the heart of children for the Advent, the coming of Christ. And also you can teach Bible stories. Some Advent calendars have pictures in them. Some have. Do yours have prizes in them? Chocolate. Do they? At Aldi. So if you want to do an Advent calendar to represent the sweetness of Christ, is it okay to do these things? The answer is yeah. The only caveat on Advent, Lent, Advent calendars, anything like that, is we must not allow ourselves to think that it makes us more lovable to the Lord. The Lord loves you, and that doesn't change. It doesn't vary. It doesn't make us more righteous. Now, the act doesn't make us more righteous, but we become righteous and more sanctified the more we think about, the more we learn, and the more we practice about the Lord. So one of the questions that you might get asked is there a right and a wrong? Romans 14 verses 5 and 6 tells us this. One person considers one day more sacred than the other. Another considers every day alike. Each of them should be fully convinced in their own mind. Whoever regards one day as special does so to the Lord. December 25th is not the actual physical date of Christ's birth. I know. But that's the day that our forefathers chose to commemorate this event. Now, does it make it any less special? Absolutely not. The event is special because of for whom and why we do it. It's like birthdays. We have a niece and nephew who have birthdays close to Christmas, and they would do their birthdays in July. Wasn't it July, babe? The reason being is they wanted their birthdays commemorated apart from Christmas. Because, like right now, our son's birthday is tomorrow. November has 4 birthdays in our family. It's a very expensive month. But if you're not careful, the closer you get to Christmas, guess what? You get sucked into Christmas and, we'll just do it all at once. And I don't care who you are, at least once in your life, you're like, I don't want to do it all at once. I want my day. And so, is it okay? The answer is yes. Should we respect other people and their traditions? Yes, we should. Are we allowed to do it? Yeah. Will we do Advent next year? I don't know. We might. Because, here at the little ALF, we do what we do. We may, but we may not. Part of the reason that we kind of shuffle things, like the way we practice communion. Ronnie, how often at the Church of Christ is communion offered? Every week. And why is that? That's the way they do it. And it's not officially, but it's a very important part of salvation. And they take the passage where it says on the first day of the week, they take that to be literal. And so that's the reason communion is offered every Sunday. So let me ask you this. If you do something on a regular basis, will there come a time when it becomes just something you do? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, something as beautiful and meaningful as saying, I love you. If your spouse says to you, I love you, I challenge you. Stop, think, and respond with something other than I love you too every now and then. Because you know what happens is we become Pavlovian. It doesn't mean that we don't mean it, but we never want that to become routine in our lives. And it's like Christmas. We don't want Christmas to become routine. And the reason we do our communion at ALF the way that we do, we take communion about 3 times a year, is the desire is to have it be something that you look forward to, that it's something unique and meaningful. I grew up at a Methodist church, and we took communion once a month. And I've said this before, that was the month I didn't have to listen to the preacher. Because we were big enough, by the time you rolled everyone through communion, you were pretty much done. Now, it speaks more to me than of the practice, but one of the goals is to try to make sure that communion is something we look forward to. And we're one of the few that I know of that does a Christmas communion. I've had people ask, well, why would you do communion at Christmas? Well, communion is what? A remembrance. And it is important to remember at Christmas. So, are Christians required to participate in Advent? Are you not being righteous and holy if you're not practicing Advent? No, that's not the case. There might be some that think that. Now, my friend, the pastor at the Lutheran church, she's retired now. But Josh, you remember every year, we would always get kind of side-eyed a little bit because we didn't do Holy Week at Easter and we didn't do Advent at Christmas. You remember? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're like church all week during Holy Week. Yeah. So, what do you do? Yeah, it's so funny. And, they kind of look at you. And I don't think she thought less of us, but I felt like she did. But anyway, we can't allow tradition to become a dictation to us. We're not required to do it. Is it okay to do it? It absolutely is. If it adds to you, by all means. It doesn't make us more loved by the Lord, but if it helps us to focus and to think in a different way. One of the challenges is at Christmas time is how do you teach a story that has been taught every year forever? Do you come and you just teach the same thing in the same way and the same, one of the worst things I could ever hear someone say is, "Oh, yeah, I remember you've preached that message 3 or 4 times." Now that doesn't happen but there was a pastor who I know. Father's Day and Mother's Day, he would preach the same message every year. Every year it was the exact same message. Now, is it true? It was good truth. But you know what happens if you hear it over and over, you're, oh, I know this. And if you were one of those that actually took notes, like in your Bible or something like that, as soon as you saw, you're like, oh, you close that up. So to bring something new, to bring another perspective, those sort of things is always good because it spices it up. And so that's right. So as we go through the the Advent season, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to have some great messages. We'll have some great services as we do the communion service and the candlelight service. And we hope that it adds to your Christmas season as well. We hope that you'll use the opportunity to invite folks to come and attend with you, even though we will not have heat. But it's okay. We'll be all right. We'll survive. I know we could put a fan in the door and blow it in. Yeah. So, all right. With that being said, let's pray, and we'll take 15 minutes. To our friends that are with us by the net, thank you for being here. Hope that you will